Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Renovation and Outdoor Living Show this Friday, the 18th of September. Funny old month, isn't it? September. And I was thinking about the number of people trying to do renovations or landscaping projects. Yeah, particularly if you're in Auckland, you have to get used to the fact it's going to rain every day at some stage of the game. 3 facts about September. Until Julius Caesar's calendar reform, which was in 45 BC, September had only 29 days. One day, you will thank me for that when it comes up in a trivia competition. Now, second funny fact about September, it's the worst month for share prices, which on average lose 1% of their value. Bet you didn't know that. So if you sell at the end of every August and buy again at the beginning of every October, you will be a very wealthy person. And final fact about September, it's the only month with the same number of letters in its name as the number of the month. Ninth month, 9 letters. That's really useful information. So a quick recap of Tuesday. We were outdoors on Tuesday. We were with Thelma Mayer of Zones in Central Auckland. She was talking about Xeriscape landscaping. If you've never heard of it, basically, and I didn't know about it till Tuesday rather. Xeriscape is a garden or a landscape. It's created in a style that basically needs little or no irrigation or other maintenance. It's used in arid regions, thinking about sand and cactuses and wood. And when it comes to low maintenance and low water use, it's got my vote. And the amazing things you can do with the various different materials if you're avoiding having to plant it all out, or if you're sticking to very specific types of plants just for those very arid types of landscapes. We then talked decking with Damon Jackson of Outdoor. We talked about Dior before. They have this amazing system of being able to build sort of the structures onto which you can put the decks or the tiles. And we were talking specifically about level entries to the interior. Okay, a deck which goes straight across from outdoor to indoor. And often you'd have thought that one of the big problems would be water runoff. How do you stop the water running inside if it's pouring with rain outside? So that's what Damon was telling us about. Also pointing out how the Outdoor systems can deal with it as ideal really for as a level entry solution. Today, healthy homes. I mentioned the water. So particularly when it's damp, we need healthy homes. And as any landlord or tenant knows, this is a huge issue right now, certainly here in New Zealand, and I imagine it probably is in Australia as well. And I know the UK has turned their attention to it as well. So first up, ventilation. I'm not talking about just keeping the windows open. That's not an option for many of us. So we looked at solutions, those solutions such as heat pumps and air conditioning. And when you're talking heat pumps, the brand Daikin is never far from your lips. It's one of Daikin. Did I say Daikin? It's one of New Zealand's most trusted names in heat pumps and air conditioning. It's a Did you know the world's leading heat pump brand? Daikin supplies heating and cooling solutions for homes, businesses, community projects across the country. And Charlotte Gasson is brand specialist for Daikin. Charlotte, nice to see you this morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks.
Are you in a beautifully air-conditioned, healthy environment there?
I sure am.
It's weird because we're between seasons, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder, should you have the heat pump on for the warmth? Should you have the aircon on for the cool? I mean, what are the options for a healthy home in both winter and summer? And is there an option which covers both off?
Yeah, well, the good thing is, and a lot of people don't actually realize this about heat pumps, but air conditioners and heat pumps are actually the same thing. So you can switch them onto heating mode or cooling mode and use them the whole year round.
So why are they called heat? They should be called temperature pumps or air pumps.
There's a story behind that, actually. They used to be called air conditioners back in the day, and they started calling them heat pumps because traditionally people associate air conditioning with cooling. And so they actually changed the name so that people clicked onto the fact that you could use them for heating as well. And of course, we're primarily a heating market.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? And also air conditioners have been around for a month of Sundays, but it's only recently, I think, and so then heat pumps come in, which are looked as a real energy efficient option. And it's only now, I think, that we're actually realizing, hold on, these are actually also taking care of another huge issue in our life, which is air quality.
Yeah, 100%. So I think heat pumps have really come along leaps and bounds in terms of energy efficiency. But like you said, other features, all of our heat pumps are actually equipped with air purification technology as well. So not only by warming the air are you kind of helping to dry it out and helping to reduce humidity in an environment, but you're also contributing to improving the overall air quality and actually purifying some of the airborne impurities as well.
Yeah, and so when you say that you can design them now for air quality, I mean, I think heat pumps have always traditionally had a filter in to stop dust
Yeah.
getting through. Probably more to stop them breaking, I guess, to stop them getting into the mechanics. Or am I
Yeah.
wrong? It's always been about the air quality.
Yeah, so most heat pumps do have an air filter. All of our residential range also have what we call a titanium acetate filter, which is actually antibacterial,
Right.
and that can actually capture all kinds of bacteria and pet hair in the air, a lot more than a traditional filter. And then as well, on some of our kind of more advanced models, we actually even have electron beams that can destroy viruses by firing an electron beam. It sounds very sci-fi.
Well,
But yeah, we do have some quite advanced air purifying options as well, depending on what you're looking for. So if you're asthmatic, you might want to go for one of those.
which is actually the point. It's actually quite a serious issue, particularly as asthma
Yeah.
seems to have been on the rise in our homes. Again, I'm talking about New Zealand here rather than overseas, but I assume it will be the same in Australia, the UK, and probably the US. What about business? It's an interesting year because normally you have your pre-winter or your early winter installations. You might, to a lesser extent, have your early summer or midsummer. It should probably wait till midsummer when everyone wants aircon. But
Yeah.
this year, a lot of people have been changing their habitats, their lifestyles, that working from home. Have you seen a huge change or an uptake in people wanting to get their air into what might be an office environment quality?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen really strong sales this year, and to be honest, an increase in demand overall. So that's been really positive for us. But I think because people have been spending so much time at home, traditionally. The kind of humidity in your home is it's become even more important now because you're breathing in your home environment all the time, and you're also actually having to run your heat pumps during the day to keep warm at your home office as well now.
We talked to someone from a company called Workspace IQ, I think just last week. Really interesting. So her job, her company is all about making sure the workplace is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be about treating RSI, but now it's actually about
Yeah.
preempting. And she would do a lot on air quality. So, I mean, do you think that our workplaces generally are more healthy than our homes, which is why a lot of people now are saying, hey, we've actually got to change things in the house a wee bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, for the most part, your workplace probably has an air conditioning system, which has some kind of air purification device there. Whereas we see like 1 in 5 homes in New Zealand are sometimes or always damp. And the last census showed us that 300,000 New Zealand homes were damp. And we know that we also have the worst or some of the worst asthma rates in the world. So I think it definitely is something to be concerned about, especially if we're spending more time at home, that we really need to make sure that they're healthy to live and breathe in.
So apart from the little guns which are shooting the electrons in the really posh systems or whatever air quality, just out of interest, does the days of, I don't know, there might be the open fire or there might be the plug-in oil heaters, but then you're running a dehumidifier all winter because there's so much moisture in there. Does an air pump, does a heat pump on the whole also dry the place?
So yeah, when you heat the temperature above about 18 degrees C, is the temperature that we know does kind of stave off the worst of the dampness and the mold growth. If you can heat your home to above that temperature, then you know that you're going to get less dampness. And most, in fact, all of our residential heat pumps do also have dry modes, which kind of heat and cool in a cycle that actually acts as a dehumidifier as well.
That's clever. That's clever because I always wondered about. So it's about the principle of keeping your house warm. Therefore, the damp's going to come in. But that's really clever. The cycle it. So so when people come in, their main requirements are efficiency. I mentioned. The fact you can flick something that's not going to cost you a fortune. What else do people want out of a heat pump? And we've talked about air quality. So what do people want?
So people, like you said, are very concerned about efficiency. Heat pumps are probably the cheapest way to heat your home with electricity. So it's really important to get a model that's going to be efficient for you. People are also very concerned about noise. And so if you maybe purchase an older air conditioner or you're running it on full blast, they can traditionally be a little bit noisy, but what you see with a lot of the more modern heat pumps is they've actually got quiet mode. So if that's something that bothers you, you can actually turn it to a low volume operation as well, which is almost...
Is it not noisy to hear the electrons being shot out of the machine?
No, that's quiet.
So that's good. So obviously efficiency. There's the air noise factor. What else?
I think we've got a lot of modern features which add a lot of convenience now. For example, Wi-Fi control, setting the timer, because I think with people being kind of aware of the cost of heating in general, people don't always realize that it is cheaper to run your heat pump, but on top of just being more energy efficient, if you set up the timer, you can actually make sure that you're using the machine in an efficient way as well. So we've got all kinds of timing settings as well as the Wi-Fi there as well. And we do actually have basically as many features as you can imagine in terms of varying the airflow, human presence sensing, and you can basically customize the way that your air conditioner is heating your room as much as you want.
That's incredible, isn't it? They can sense humans. Therefore, we're getting
and actually, if you leave the room, they can actually wind down and stop heating as intensely to save power.
But will they stay? But here's the question. You mentioned it just now about whether you should have a heat pump left on the whole time for efficiency, or whether, like me, because of my Scottish roots, that I switch it off as I'm leaving the room every time. But I'm wrong to do that, aren't I?
Well, probably what you want to do is set up a weekly timer. So if you know when you usually get up on a weekday or get up on a weekend, you can set it up so that you don't actually have to switch it on and off, and it's just heating up in the mornings when you need it. Maybe doesn't necessarily have to run through the whole day and the whole night, just enough to kind of heat the room when you need it.
What are the costs? I'm not going to talk about installation because that's probably installation. I've done one recently. It's not silly money really, unless you're having to sort of hide the ducting and things. But the actual cost of a unit, like give me a basic to top of the range for a home.
I mean, we are B2B, so we sell through our dealer network, and it does vary a lot. I mean, before you would want to get a quote for a heat pump, you definitely want to get a dealer to come out and have a look at your house, measure it up, and because every house is different, the kind of insulation that you actually need to go for will vary depending on the layout of your house. So, I mean, you could be looking from anywhere to just over $1,000 to a lot more, depending on the kind of system that you want. So you might just want to heat one room with a relatively small unit, or you might want a ducted system that actually runs through your whole house. But the best thing to probably do if you're wanting to know more about the cost is if you go to our website, you can actually send a specialist out to your house for free, and they'll measure up and give you a quote.
Yeah. Ducted system, that's interesting. So this is so can you do that in homes without having underfloor, like, you know, obviously the big sort of gas-fired heating system use ducts under the bottom. Can you do it in a house, let's say on a concrete pad?
So you can install the ducted system actually into the roof space, so the ducting will go in your ceiling space.
That's cool. Okay, I might get someone to come around. Charlotte, thank you for giving us some time today. I wanted to actually very quickly before you disappear. When I was looking at that, when I mentioned that I installed one recently, and a sensitive choice collaboration. Can you explain what that is?
Oh, okay. So the Sensitive Choice program, we actually work very closely with. And so that is a program designed by the Asthma Foundation, which is all about approving products that are kind of safe and recommended for people who have any kind of respiratory problem or asthma. So all our residential products are endorsed by the Sensitive Choice blue butterfly, which you can see on that image there. And it just means that we're a sensitive choice if you've got any kind of respiratory issues.
I wonder how much we're going to see this in more and more products, aren't we? Really interesting stuff. Thank you so much indeed. That is Charlotte from Daikin, Charlotte Gasson from Daikin. Thank you for giving us some time today. We'll look forward to chatting again with you and the Daikin team. Good to see you. Have a great weekend. Now, we're going to stick with healthy homes as the theme, and we're going to move now from, well, it's very similar actually. We've talked about ventilation. Now we're going to talk more specifically just about air quality. And this is very much the domain of wellness architecture. You'll know wellness architecture. We spoke to them in about, I think, our 20th show, about our sort of 10th week of doing this. It's a relatively new area of building and renovation, growing very, very fast. And Jade Hurst, that's the name hopefully you'll be familiar with, studied wellness architecture. She got her credentials via the International WellBuild Institute in the US, the 8th person in New Zealand to receive this. And then she formed GoodSpace, that puts human health and wellness at the core of the design process. And it's really good to see you again, Jade. Thank you for giving us some more time. Just as a quick reminder, in case somebody didn't see you last time, just to explain a wee bit about GoodSpace, you practice putting core elements at the sort of the center of the building process, don't you?
You were listening last time then. Absolutely. So I focus on 6 elements of the built environment. So air, water, light, biophilia, sound, and mind. So thanks for having me on again to talk about air specifically. So yeah. That's a snapshot of what I do there.
Yeah, not at all, because I mean, this is it's basically science-backed theories which you then put into practice through interior design at GoodSpace. That's it in a principle, in a concept, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah, because I mentioned last time when we were talking very generally about it last time. So actually, I'll be more specific. Let's talk about air. Okay, we want to focus on air. How important is it that we are raising our awareness of the health benefits of the air we're actually breathing, something which we probably haven't even thought about since we got rid of, I don't know, smog over London?
Totally. Well, I mean, interestingly enough, staggering, we breathe in excess of 15,000 litres of air a day. So these are all things that I was discovering as I was going through the process of studying wellness architecture. So air is absolutely the most technical and comprehensive part of what I do. It's the biggest part in I guess, the whole building standard that I did study, because there's so many aspects of it that we have really, really close to us, because our buildings and our spaces, we're very intimately, we've got a very intimate relationship with our space.
It's isn't it, when you think about inside, because a lot of the time we go inside in order to escape from toxins and the horrible, dirty outdoors. But actually, this is the one time when actually we are putting ourselves into potentially a more toxic environment.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, I mean, we obviously have a lot of really great insights and data around outdoor air quality. It's been regulated for decades, right? So we're actually now becoming a lot more aware of just our daily domestic activities, like cooking, heating our homes, just generally sharing space with people, at how much that impacts our indoor air quality. So indoor air quality can be 5 times more toxic than outside. And that's really dependent on where you live, right? If you live right next to a motorway, then perhaps, you've got a much bigger problem outside than you do inside. But certainly on a whole, our indoor environments are quite toxic. And it is really just from just doing very basic living activities. Like I said, like the heating.
So what sort of a role does companies like Daikin? It's all right, Charlotte's gone. So companies like Daikin, because Charlotte was talking about the sensitive choice, which is like a badge saying we're working. She's talking about shooting electrons as the machines are working. Is that sort of technology making a big difference to our interiors?
Absolutely. Actually, yeah, Daikin's a really impressive example of that. And I was having a chat to Charlotte before the show as well. Huge brand overseas, and now New Zealand is really starting to pick that up, and just we're a little bit slower to these sorts of things. They start, in the States and maybe through the UK and sort of via Australia, and we now have this like massive awareness, and now also really, really great access to things like the Daikin air purification through their heat pumps and stuff like that. Actually makes it really simple for people now that we kind of go, okay, air quality is a problem. Now how do I fix it, right? Because you can't just sort of start slagging off homes and office environments and going, yeah, okay, I get it's a problem, but now what do I do? So that's really what I'm here for, to help people find those products and get those strategies happening inside their homes.
I want to ask you about what we should do about it very shortly from a renovation perspective. But just first of all, how easy is it or difficult is it to actually measure the air quality?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of companies that actually do it. So you can employ a company to come in and test things. So if you are, I guess you'd probably be more motivated to do something like that if you had obvious sensitivities in your family. So like Charlotte was talking about the sensitive choice and that link to asthma and our really huge asthma rates that we have here in New Zealand. If you had an obvious need, then you would be very motivated to get in an external company to actually come through and test your air quality. So there is measures to do that. They're measuring things like formaldehyde and VOCs and other airborne particles and things like that. So yeah, it's incredibly technical. Yeah, I guess that feature is incredibly technical.
So once we've had the experts come in and measure it and we realize we've got a bit of a problem, what should we do? Or even if we don't have a problem, but we're about to do a renovation project, what should we be doing about it from a renovation perspective? Are there some basic steps to make sure our air quality is going to be better?
Yeah, well, listen, if we are renovating or building a new home, we should definitely be on high alert with this sort of stuff. So I guess one of the biggest things that we should do is just be looking at non-toxic materials and finishes. If you think about, the VOCs that we can bring into our environment through this process, and when I say VOCs, I mean volatile organic compounds, that's in excess of 10,000 odd chemicals, right? Just lumped into that group. That's everything from glues and paints and solvents and sealants and things like that that can be present within our materials. So really, really important to do your homework, really ask your builders and your contractors what they're using, and feel empowered also to actually suggest other things that you would like them to use, because sometimes building projects can get away on you and it's just sort of happening and they're just going to do what they do. But if you are really concerned about these things, then you really do need to take a bit of control, educate yourself a little bit more and look at the building materials. It's a really, really big part of it.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And so I mean, we've talked about we'll mention Daikin again because hey, if they're doing the right thing, they can have another plug. So companies like that are really switched on. That is their business, I guess. What about your paint companies? I mean, are manufacturers of materials paying enough attention to this?
They are starting to. I guess when I started my study, it was really hard. I thought, oh my goodness, like I can bang on about this stuff, but then what can people use? So I started on this big journey to look at materials. I started talking to people like placemakers and just sort of getting a sense like what is available to people, what is in our paints, and there's some really, really great things happening. So Resene obviously have a really great product. They've got the lower VOC product. So they also, there's a really lovely company down in Christchurch, the Natural Paint Company, which I've suggested for a lot of my projects. Beautiful paints. If you think about we're quickly renovating or we've got a baby on the way and we're going to paint the baby's room and then we chuck the baby in this room full of chemicals. It's just so counterintuitive, And look, I certainly, I've had 3 children. I certainly didn't have this awareness before now. And I wished I had. I'm really grateful now that I do and I can help other people with these things. But there's certainly a lot more products very readily available for us now in our homeware stores. And yeah.
It's like everything as parents, isn't it? We find out this stuff too late. Our kids are screwed, but at least we can help them. So tell me, is that beautiful, wonderful, fresh paint smell is not a good thing?
It's not. It's funny. Some people are more sensitive than others. And I know people that say, oh, I actually quite like the smell of paint. Or I actually quite like the smell of, fuel when I'm filling up my car. And I'm like, that's it. But it is just, it's very dangerous. Short term, obviously, having walking past or walking in a room that has the VOCs off-gassing, off materials. Short term, it's okay, right? But long term, because off-gassing can happen in a building in a renovation project, can happen between 2 and 8 weeks initially. But that's really dependent on the materials you're using, the humidity in your environment, like Charlotte was talking about. You just need to make sure that you're doing everything to sort of stop the toxins from coming in. And if you've got them, then you need to try and eliminate them.
Yeah, oh, it's really cool. So Jade, we'll talk to you again and again and again, because it is a huge growing area and it's of huge significance to us, particularly in the renovation or the building game. And it's all this stuff which you're talking about is all going to become so mainstream, especially when you see companies like Daikin who are onto it. And Refreshes, obviously, because they're in, I was going to say Resine as paints. And what was that? Was it the Natural Paint Company in Christchurch you mentioned?
Natural Paint Company. Yeah.
See, these guys, they're onto it, aren't they? And yeah, really interesting stuff. Jade, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that. There's Jade Hurst, our wellness architecture expert from an extremely beautiful, uncluttered air environment there. So very quickly, I wanted to just remind you about our competitions we're giving away next week from Ortex, the Bale of Ortex Green Stuff Sound Solution. This is like, it's good, it's healthy, it's plastics-based, renewable, acoustic and thermal insulation, perfect for your internal walls, like your bedrooms and bathroom. Like our page, tell us when Ortex was founded. And we'll also be giving away next week, 12 South giveaway, is the Stego USB-C hub and the Curve SE. That's the hub to plug all your bits into, and the Curve SE is the thing which your computer can sit on. You can buy them online. Now, we're giving away a white one. If you wanted a black one, you could go to JB Hi-Fi or Noel Leeming. Then they'd be able to sell them to you. But we'll give you that white. We'll give you one like that in white. If you like our page and share this competition, then you'll go into the draw to win those 2 items. And then later on, I'll tell you a bit more about the lamps, which we're giving away. Here you go. These aren't next week. These are going to be, I think the week after we'll give these away. These are the 5 LED desk clamp lamps, which were given to us by, I mentioned Workspace IQ just now. That was Randa Abassi who gave us those desk lamps to help us not strain our eyes when we're reading indoors. So Friday's top 10. For this 18th of September. Today we're doing the top 10 sustainable homes, just to keep into the theme. Top 10, number 10, Edgeland House. Now this was built, look at that. It's stunning, built on a former brownfield site, and the idea is that it pairs the insulating roof of local wildflowers, which you can sort of see on the, you can see them quite clearly there on the right, with a low emissivity glazing and an adiabatic cooling. I may not have written that myself. So geothermal heating, passive cooling measures ensuring comfortable indoor-outdoor climate year-round. That is all about your air control. At number 9, this is the Mow House. This is a prefab. It was made in 2 weeks. It's customized and it has a branching floor plan that goes around the site's old growth tree, which is right there in the middle. Very cool. And in addition to using energy-efficient materials and the channeling of cross breezes, an insulating green roof further stabilizes the interior climate. At number 8, the off-grid home. Now, this is a sustainable retreat, and it generates its own power, its own water supply. It's a farmhouse. So it's got that sort of rustic sensibility, but also passive house principles, including natural ventilation, local materials, and a layout optimized for the sun. At number 7, Net Zero Energy House takes a proactive approach, to ecology, rethinking our access to natural resources. This is a carbon neutral house. Produces its own energy through we can't really see them, photovoltaic panels. I presume they're mainly on the roof. It also enables on-site food production. When the world ends, they're going to be living the high life. And number 6, the Meme Meadows Experimental House. Wow. That looks like something out of a movie, doesn't it? It's an ongoing project for sustainable housing. So it's a pretty humble structure, as you can see, but it's got ancient and contemporary techniques to get energy efficiency. For instance, it's heated by a central hearth and some matte floors. It's airtight polyester membrane, cloaks this wooden structure in a wrapper that keeps the sunlight in or keeping out the cold. Number 5, the Hunset Mill House, another prefab wooden home. This is a high-performance glazing, passive solar heating system, and there's a charred cedar shell. Really smart there. Number 4, the House O. This is in Japan. It's these mysterious dark boxes, this is a very energy-efficient house. Again, the layout's corners improve exposure to light and shade for passive heating and cooling throughout the year. At number 3 of our top 10 sustainable homes, the Howells W. It's prefab again. It's geothermal energy to achieve an efficient and attractive residential solution. And it uses recyclable CNC cut timber framing that keeps it insulated and cheap. Number 2, this is the G House. This is a classic sort of shape that uses prefab structure. It's an airtight construction that embeds the passive approaches for heating and cooling through southern orientation, natural ventilation and efficient insulation. Must be a Northern Hemisphere home if they're looking for southern orientation. And at number 1, the most sustainable home in our top 10 today is the Lake Cottage, built with local materials by regional artisans, a small family cabin. And it's insulating pitched roof, stands as one of the cottage's most striking features, as you can see from there. That is a charred cedar, which is used as the cladding, and that technique basically prevents fire and termites. Very clever, really, really clever. Good to see you all. Thanks for joining us this Friday, the 18th. I'll see you all next week on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.